taking a little bit of time to chat with us. Basically, I just wanted to kind of catch up with you. It's been a while since we've spoken. I've got a few questions from students at MoGraph Mentor to get to at the very end. But just right off the bat, give us an update. I want you to touch on just professionally what's been going on with you, the various projects, and then we'll get a little bit into your personal project of this short film.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Firstly, thanks for having me. Really appreciate you having me on and be able to speak to everyone. Yeah, so lately, ironically, I've been working on a lot of NDA projects. So it's been kind of tricky because a lot of the things I've been working on, I'm not necessarily supposed to speak about. But the last, I guess, really big thing I completed was Black Panther, the main title sequence of Black Perception, which did that in like January and most of December. So that in itself was like such a insane, crazy process, seeing that the sequence was 2.5 minutes long. And in total, just for the sequence, we had about 5 guys on it throughout the entire period of time. And in a short few weeks, that was just like an insane amount of work to cover in a very short period of time.
Yeah, how did you get recruited to work on that project? Had you worked with Perception previously?
Well, they had reached out sometimes before, but just the schedule did not work out. So this time they reached out, and then I kind of put 2 and 2 together. I was like, okay, well, what's the next Marvel movie to come out? And they usually work with Marvel titles. So like Batman, I definitely can't miss this one. So they reached out, and I ended up connecting with them, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the film did incredible. The titles are absolutely fantastic. That's such a cool project to get to be a part of. We were just speaking with Handel, and he was just saying he felt like it was a huge kind of honor and just a really great project to be a part of. Did you feel like there was a special significance to that project, or when you're in the trenches, does it just feel like visual solutions and technical stuff? What was your experience on that one?
Well, for me, I think there was definitely a gravity working on the project, knowing that so many people were going to see it. And somewhere throughout the process, when they started selling, when tickets went on sale and they start saying, oh, well, this is breaking records everywhere, and it really re-emphasized like how big this movie was going to be. And being a movie that I think centered on minorities, Black people in particular, and being a minority working in this field, they had a definitely added sense of passion working on this. And what also made me feel what was really pretty cool about the project also is like everyone on the team also like were very passionate on the project, which was pretty awesome. So I was really just excited I had the opportunity to work with the guys on Perception, which they gave like 125%, like as much as they could on the project, and the entire team did. So
yeah, I assume the Marvel people have some high expectations about the work they get back, so I can imagine the pressure and the deadlines on that. Sekani, I first came to know about you just from so much of your beautiful 3D work. I think on your portfolio you described yourself as a Cinema 4D generalist / designer. I wanted to hear a little bit about how you feel like that kind of niche has worked for you in the industry. I think a lot of students wonder about defining themselves more narrowly, like kind of like, saying C4D, or should I be a generalist? Should I just be a designer? Should I just be a motion designer? I was wondering your kind of take on that.
Yeah, well, honestly, when I started, which in some sense was before I even knew what motion design was, I just wanted to make the ideas I had in my mind. So I wanted to think about an idea, and I wanted to make it. So before I really realized what I was doing, I was kind of training myself to think in a design sense, but also teach myself the technical skills to do that. Now, I would say just in my experience of being a motion designer, usually people, kind of either choose 1 or 2 of the courses. It's usually you're more focused on design, usually a little bit more focused on production. It's definitely more of an investment to try to be very proficient in both aspects, like being able to design something at a high level and execute it at a high level as well. But just because, that's just always, it was always my approach I just liked having the flexibility of having an idea and executing it. For me, there was like a sense of fulfillment, being able to just make something and not necessarily just make someone else's idea manifest. So for anyone, I guess, trying to figure out their path, I think you should stick to what you like doing best. If you like design, sure, do design. If you feel more production oriented, just do production. If you want to do both, it's definitely in some ways a harder path, but if you love to doing it, it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like a natural progression for you. At least
yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Tell me a little bit about the short film. For a lot of people who are watching this on demand later, maybe it's already out in the wild and they can check it out. But give us some backstory on what inspired you to direct and produce your own short film.
Yeah, so I've been working on this film for pretty much coming up on a year. I conceptualized it last year, and I just had this nagging feeling like I wanted to do something just of a little longer format, maybe like a minute and a half. And I wanted to do something that really pushed me both, conceptually and technically, and to just do something or make a production. When you see it, you really kind of ask yourself, wow, did one person make this? So with that in mind, working on a pitch last year, I created these frames with these figures covered in cloth. And from that, it inspired an idea in me, which I think is just reminiscent of how it seems like society is, which is we kind of interact with each other, but we don't necessarily share who we really are with each other. It's almost like our feelings and emotions are hidden, and we kind of keep it hidden from each other. So that's kind of where the idea for my short started. And essentially, the short is about appreciating the things that we hide from each other, and like appreciating those aspects that we have that we don't necessarily share, and to kind of reflect on ourselves and see, like, once we start peeling back those layers and showing these things, then it could be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, I love the concept, and Sekani gave me kind of a sneak preview on it today, and I'll just say it is absolutely beautiful. And I do like that concept. It's pretty deep. It's almost kind of a Nietzsche psychological, we wear masks or unconscious type of thing.
Yeah.
It seems like more you made the film because you wanted to produce and direct something of your own. Did you also have in the back of your mind this was a chance to play with visuals or compositions or something that lives in the portfolio and helps you go after more work that you want in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. It was very, very important to me that whatever I made felt like it was a step above the rest from anything I've ever created.
Just like visually and movement and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, exactly. And, looking at the end product now,
which is a pretty high bar because you've done a lot of really, really good looking 3D.
Thank you. But yeah, I definitely think I stepped it up a notch on this one, just because I spent so much time. I've learned a couple of things along the way, especially trying to organize a project like this, which had maybe around 30 shots, all rendered up at home. There's no design support or technical support. You're figuring out everything by yourself. The only help I'm getting is I'm working with a sound studio from Barcelona. This guy Nicolo hit me up. They're called Smiter, and they're doing some amazing things with the audio. So I'm pretty psyched about how that's going to turn out.
Tell me a little bit about working in New York City. You're still in NYC, I assume.
Yep, that is correct.
Okay, how are you finding New York, the scene, the studios? You're kind of just bouncing around gig to gig type of thing?
Yeah, exactly. New York's the type of city that kind of keeps you on your toes. It's the type of city where there's always something to do and time flies by extremely, extremely fast. The other good thing is there's a lot of work that's concentrated in a very small area. So there's, tons of studios. And the thing I like about the city the most, or at least working here, is that I feel like there's an appreciation for people that can do good work. And, like if you're here and you're able to do good work, there's a lot of opportunities here, and that's something I like. In addition to it's also like a very small community, and like you run into freelancers all the time that you work with. You get to know people, and there's a lot of talented artists that you get to work with as well. So it's great. It's great from that aspect.
Yeah, is it a challenge to kind of balance the bookings? Is there a lot of studios that want to do holds and stuff? Are you having to say no? What's that looking like?
Yeah, there's usually a lot of studios reaching out. I try to not necessarily take as much first holds, but what I do, try to do is, have a discussion and just talk about like what's the project. And, just kind of getting a feel for what studios and what projects you want to work on. But the longer you stay here, you begin to develop relationships with certain companies and people you like to work with. So from that, you kind of just figure a way to get to work on the projects you want and the people that you want to work with.
Yeah. What are the characteristics of a project that would attract you? Like I don't know if it's a question of environment or the subject matter or the end use. Like what are the projects that you get most excited about?
Usually something that I know will push me and something I know that I can use in my portfolio.
So maybe working with super talented people is attractive to see if that pushes you?
Yeah, exactly. So something I think that is creative, something aesthetically that feels fresh, or where you kind of have to figure out, okay, like how do I get this aesthetic? Like for me, working on the Black Panther title sequence, which was, when I came in, they had more or less an animatic, but they haven't really figured out the aesthetic yet. They had an idea of how they wanted it to look, but they hadn't arrived there yet. So that initially was my first task, was to figure out how to make this sand texture without actually using parts, actually scattering sand, which was in some sense a challenge. But my first couple of days, I tried a couple of things, and I think we all came up with a good solution. So things like that, where you're really kind of working towards an end goal and an overall product to make something that feels cool, like a sequence or a commercial that just feels artistically driven. So stuff like that.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. You are a graduate of SCAD, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so you did 4 years at SCAD?
Yes.
I mean, now that you've been doing this for a number of years and you kind of look back on that experience, I mean, I guess a couple of questions. Do you feel like it prepared you on the technical and artistic side? Did you feel confident as a designer coming away from that undergraduate program?
Yes and no. Yes, because I feel like when I came into SCAD, I came in with some technical skills already. I think what was important at SCAD was learning how to think conceptually and learning design principles, which is something that might be a little bit more elusive if you're trying to find it online. I think as an artist, you should never rely on the school you're going to provide you with technical skills, because there's so many resources on the internet right now that really shouldn't be your primary focus. I think what school gives you, I think, especially with professors, is like some insights into the industry. We had a professor, Austin Shaw, he used to work in industry in New York, and he used to give great insight just in regards to how like a pitch would work or certain things that might happen in the studio. And he particularly structured his classes to reflect real world studio settings. So we had this amazing class called Design Promotion, where you get a brief and you kind of create a deck or a pitch very similar, pretty much exactly how you do it in the real world. So from those perspectives, I think, going to college was definitely beneficial. But if you're thinking, hey, I'm going to go to college and learn these specific technical skills, then that's not necessarily what school is for.
Yeah, sort of that higher level, higher orders of thinking. What about the liberal arts side? I mean, it was a full undergrad program. It wasn't like a vocational school. You had to take, I don't know what the major, take English or psych or like some of that other stuff. What's your review on that now? Do you feel like that developed your intellect? Did it help you? Do you ever look back and you think, you know what, I'm glad I spent that money to do that part of it?
You know what? if I were to be frank, there were definitely some classes where I felt was a little bit unnecessary. I say that because so from a academic level, I feel like a lot of the classes were just high school challenging. Like ideally, if I could have gotten to a program which kind of condensed and really taught me the things that I needed to learn in motion design, that would have been a little bit more appealing for me, because then you used to have your actual core classes for your major, and then you had these other classes, but like you were always thinking about the projects that you were doing, that it was a little bit of a challenge to focus on like a anthropology class or a psychology class per se. But I mean, that was just me. But everyone has a different experience.
Sure. Okay, let me make sure I'm not missing any questions on the MoGraph Mentor Slack channel here. So I do have a couple questions. Steve Thoreau was asking, he said, I'd like to know how he negotiates being able to put the freelance work he does on his personal site, since most studios are not friendly to freelancers putting their names on studio work. Have you ever gotten a hairy situation where a studio didn't want you using the stuff that you had just been a part of producing, or have you not run into that issue?
I mean, yeah, I've definitely run into that issue. I mean, generally, there's some projects that you're never going to be able to show. There's definitely projects that you are. And I think the most important part is to just establish that up front before the project begins. Some people charge more money because of the fact that you won't be able to show it. Personally, I don't. But that's just part of the territory. And one thing you have to keep in mind is that when you're commissioned to do work, you're doing work for the client. Technically, even though you're imparting some of yourself in this work, at the end of the day, you still have to remember that you're doing this work, for hire, which is why I always reinforce the use of personal projects, because then this is something that you have complete control over. But that being said, most of the projects that I do, I'm able to put on my portfolio. But there's definitely certain projects that will never see the light of day.
Yeah. Case by case, and try to establish it up front. I think that's good wisdom. So Kamal asks, let's see, it's too small there. I'd like to know his opinion about what's the best course of action to take for a newbie motion graphics student with no prior professional experience who wants to get experience and be a professional MoGraph artist. Then he says, and to make matters worse, to live in a third world country, so there's no chance of an internship. Kamal is in the Middle East, I believe, so I think that's a little bit of context for his question, but maybe some insight from your perspective on that.
Yeah, I have a funny story actually. When I was at Perception, one of the guys there, he was from India, and I was asking him, oh, so how'd you come over? And he said he just, put his stuff online, and Johnny, who was one of the directors over at Perception, saw his work, and they liked it so much that they flew him over, and he got an internship from India to Perception, which kind of goes to show it's just more so about the work. Now, the good thing about this industry is that no one's really looking at like where you went to school. It's all about what you can tangibly contribute to a project.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to show this is using a portfolio. Now, for someone who may not have a portfolio, I always say, you know what, make a couple 5-second animations, things that you like to do, things that you think would express your voice and show the work that, again, you want to do. Now, imagine if you do 4, 5, 6 5-second animations, 10-second animations. That's an entire demo reel, and this is something you could do, in a matter of months. And I would also say, the better your demo reel, it begins to open more doors. So for people looking to, break in, if you have an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, like that's what I do. I wake up at 6, I spend 2-3 hours on my project, and I go do a full day of work.
Yeah, that's a long day. Yes.
And that's if you're not working late. But if you, if you really want to improve, like you can't rely on studio work or the work that you get at gigs to improve your portfolio. I never have. So that's why I'm always making stuff. So what I would say, is literally just keep making stuff and just try to avoid putting like a lot of the trendy stuff that you see on Instagram on your reel. Like you want to do stuff that feels unique to your voice, that will make you stand out and make a lot of work all the time. A lot of it's going to suck, but a lot of it's going to be great as well. And it's the ones that are great that count.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think that's the wisdom of, you do have to try to make great work as good as you can. And, you know, from so many people I've talked to too, it's just the breakthroughs that you get as the portfolio gets better. And then it's a snowball effect, because then you get to go work with better people, and then you're a part of something that looks even better, which makes it a little bit easier the next time. So I know it can feel just super daunting for people starting out, of like, how am I going to get to that? But
Yeah.
just continuing to grind away and like try to make great looking stuff. But like you said, get into those design principles, that visual side, so you're not just trying to kind of copy what you see out there.
Yeah, I mean, my work sucks, you know, for a while, until, you know, like, but it just took a lot of practice, and I was just so enthusiastic about it. I just, you know, literally kept making stuff, and that's literally what you have to do. Just keep making stuff and keep getting better all of the time.
Yeah, treat it as a discipline every day, if you can. Every day that you can do it, that's good.
And every day doesn't mean make something every day. It means work at something every day. I would say, like, I rather you work towards making a good piece than rushing, or because you're trying to do it every day to make an okay piece.
Yeah, that's great wisdom too, especially if you are really trying to pivot to getting paid or getting that first internship. You know, the example I always like to use is J.R. Canest, Jorge Estrada, of his, you know, his thesis film at Vancouver Film School, and all the attention that it got, and just that one piece. And, you know, he'll tell the story of just how much time it took and how many really months to that one video, but then it can open those doors because you're kind of showing. And it's almost more impressive to show your ability to go deep and really polish something than it does to just churn out, like a million renders that took you 2 hours, you know, every single day, which probably is not going to fool many art directors or impress them when they're looking through so many portfolios. And, there is so much competition.
Like when looking at a reel, I could instantly tell if it's good by just looking at the animation they did for their open.
Yeah.
Because I know, like, okay, if you've, like, me personally, I like to sink a lot of time into my opens, because it's the first thing they see. And if they see like you've taken the time to craft this, or they know this guy is serious. Mm-hmm. Like, if you spend more time working on less projects, but making each one more refined, that's the things that make you stand out. The more refined and the more polished each project has, that's what gets you in the doors. And, you know, I think now, because we have all these tools like, you know, Octane and, you know, all that, we churn out a lot of stuff, but we don't necessarily realize, like, oh, well, there's 500, you know, there's a bunch of people doing that as well. So you want to make stuff that feels different, and, you know, it's a step above the rest. And one thing I always do is always compare my work to people. This is me personally. I like to compare my work to people that are better than me. But also keeping in mind where I am in the process. So it's always kind of setting a goal for where you want to be, but still realizing where you are, and always thinking, man, there's so much more to go. Like, even for me, I know there's so much more to go. I'm going to be picking up Houdini soon. There's a whole bunch of things to learn on that front. So it's an ongoing process.
Yes, the gap, as they say, of where you want to be, and it's the whole thing really is a journey, and we're probably all going to be learners for life as the technology changes. That one part, again, that's not going to change are those kind of universal design principles, which is why it's so important for young artists to start there and not skip over it and just want to rush to the cool, fun, technical stuff. So you're really doing it. You're in New York City. That's got to be a tough grind. I assume the hours can be very long. You've been doing it for several years now. Where do you see this going in the future? Are you just going to do this for, you know, how many years? Do your own studio? What goes through your mind when you think about the next 5-10 years for yourself?
Well, I guess the tricky thing about the motion design career field is that you don't necessarily progress in the traditional sense. Like there's different avenues you could take. You could continue to just become a more senior production artist, or you could decide to direct or just lead projects, which I think is where I want to transition to in the next couple of years. But it's tricky because I'm also very attached to the work that I do in production work. So I want to spend a little bit more time, just kind of honing my craft before making that jump, just because you're essentially adding more skill sets like directing, managing, presenting ideas, even though there are skills that you have as, a designer animator when you're, art directing or creative directing, it's that turned up to a proficient level, which should just be as proficient as your design and your production skills. But that's essentially the direction that I want to head in.
Yeah. So you are from Trinidad and Tobago. I know that's both islands. I don't know if you say it together like that or not, but
that's exactly how you say it.
Okay, good. And do you still have family back there?
Yeah. So originally, I'm from Tobago, which to the point of one of the earlier questions, which is an island in the Caribbean with a population of 60 to 50,000 people. So very kind of small island, very humble beginnings. Where again, when I started off, I didn't necessarily know what I was doing. I just knew that, oh wow, this is cool. I can make stuff move. But again, just starting there and keep, making stuff. But yeah, my parents, they still live. They have a bunch of family there, and I try to visit as often as I can.
Is it an issue for you working in the United States? Are there requirements you have to meet, money you have to pay, permits, stuff like that?
No, it's fine. I mean, initially, being an immigrant and trying to, secure an immigrant visa just to work here, I'm not sure if people really understand how extremely difficult that can be and expensive. No matter how talented you are, it's definitely a process. But I worked that out. It took maybe about a year or two, but that's all straightened out.
Yeah, well, that's good. Is it something where you have to have a connection on the other side already, or can someone who just wants to come and pursue these markets just go into that process?
You definitely have to have some working body in the US to be able to sponsor your visa or be an agent for you.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's many ways, you could do that.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. I know I'm always surprised at how much trouble people are given to come and work here, especially when you've got the companies absolutely desperate for talented people. So I think I maxed out, or those were just the only two on that one.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can, you could do a whole episode just about, immigration by itself. But fortunately, people in our industry have access to an artist visa or O1 visa, which is a merit-based visa, which most international freelancers in New York actually has. So we're fortunate to be able to be provided with the opportunity to apply for that, which, just because we work on projects that are a little bit more tangible to prove importance and are usually seen by a lot more people, kind of gives us at least an opportunity or avenue to be able to work at.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that specific visa. Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm sure many of the studios you're working with are very glad you're here. You've mentored with us at MoGraph Mentor, and I'm super grateful for that. And I know our students have been incredibly grateful for the time you've given them. I know we've got a bit of a hard out here at 30 minutes, so I'm going to let you go.
All right.
But, it's always a pleasure to see you, my friend, and I hope to lure you back to mentoring at MoGraph Mentor if your schedule opens up in the future. But for now, I'll definitely just take these moments here to get to see you.
Yeah, man. Again, thanks for having me on. I would like to say, if anyone's watching this and they feel like they want to reach out, shoot me an email, ask me a question, definitely feel free. I feel like any knowledge or information I could pass on to anyone that might be able to just help them in their career would be great. So definitely don't hesitate.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely link up your portfolio. People should definitely check out Sekani's portfolio. I don't know if you'll ever do it, but you probably should on like a blog or something. Teach us all how you build these PCs and the components you're using. I don't know if that's, you know, something to spend time on, but you take it farther than most people in terms of building a rig that can do a lot of heavy stuff.
Yeah, I've actually written an article for Motionographer, which should be out pretty soon. It's more or less the things that you should keep in mind or know when you're trying to build a PC specifically designed to do motion design work and 3D work. So that's coming soon, along with my short film Hidden, which is dropping on March 30th. So also look out for that.
Very close. We'll also link that in to this YouTube page once that's up. Sekani, thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
All right, Michael, you take care, man.
Thanks.
All right.